Well, to Guinea-Bissau now, where an army general has been sworn in as the country's new transitional leader. This a day after the military seized power, arresting President Umaro Embaló and suspending the vote count from Sunday's presidential election. The new de facto leader, General Horta Ntam, took an oath of office in a ceremony at the military's headquarters amid dozens of heavily armed soldiers. Well, shortly afterwards, he spoke to the nation. We can take a listen to that.
We will vigorously combat drug trafficking, course of action, state corruption, political corruption, and corruption of Ghanaian society. In this fight against corruption and drug trafficking, the military's actions to restore national security and order require the cooperation of all Guineans.
Well, for more information about what's going on in Guinea-Bissau, we're joined now on the line by Caitlin Kelly, our correspondent. Good to have you with us, Caitlin. What's the latest that you're hearing now from the ground in Guinea-Bissau?
Well, we've just heard from Fernando Diaz himself. Our France 24 colleague Sarah Sacco spoke to him, and he's called the events of the past 24 hours a false coup. He says he wants the real results of the election and has called on the international community to help from what he said was a safe and hidden place in Bissau. It's an interesting development after this morning's events that you've just mentioned, as this group of military in the capital declared, General Horta Ntam the leader, and said that he's assumed office for the next year. It was during a swearing-in ceremony that journalists from AFP observed in the military headquarters, and they also said that there were dozens of heavily armed soldiers at the scene. Don't know that much about this new leader, but sources in Bissau that I've spoken to say he was a close friend or ally of Embaló, who he now in theory replaces. Embaló, we know, has been detained. Well, he told media this yesterday that he'd been arrested when military men stormed the palace. Reports this morning say he's actually still in the military headquarters now where he slept. This group, the so-called High Military Command for the Restoration of Order, read out the statement last night on television and declared that everything had been suspended. So it's a really evolving situation at the moment, and we've now also just heard that reaction from the opposition leader on the day that the country was supposed to get results from a pretty tight election.
Give us an idea of some of the other reactions that we are hearing from about this.
Yeah, I mean, across the board, there's been a lot of speculation and questions around this military takeover from multiple people I've spoken to and analysts. Questions remain, especially around how the president has managed to communicate with media channels like France 24 when he was under arrest. People I've spoken to also questioned, the fact that the president's own military unit were the ones deployed after the gunshots were heard, and it was the man leading the military takeover was the head of the presidential guard. We heard from the UN last night. They expressed profound concern and said that they were monitoring the situation. That's the largest international voice we've heard so far. Whilst ECOWAS released a statement last night from their electoral monitoring mission, who had literally just left the country 48 hours ago, and they called the incident regrettable because they had literally just met with the two leading candidates who had told them, they said, that they would accept the will of the people, etc. And so it's a really sharp turn of events, particularly in their eyes. On the streets of Bissau itself, we've had very mixed and rather exasperated reactions from a country that's sadly very used to coups after dozens of attempts and 4 actual coups in the past few years.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed, Caitlin. Caitlin Kelly there speaking to us, our correspondent in the region.